I became the executor of my father's estate and discovered he'd been secretly funding my siblings' lives while I struggled. The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and expensive cologne. I sat across from Mr. Patterson, trying to process what he'd just shown me. Bank statements, wire transfers, years of them. Your father was very methodical about his financial arrangements, he said carefully. Methodical, that's one word for it. While I was working 3 jobs to pay off student loans, Dad had been sending my brother $4,000 monthly for his startup. While I ate ramen and couldn't afford to fix my car's broken AC, my sister received quarterly payments of $15,000 for her art career. The spreadsheet went back 7 years. Did they know about each other? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Mr. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. The accounts were structured so that, did they know? He nodded. Of course they did. That explained the designer handbags my sister carried to our budget family dinners. The way my brother always had the newest tech but claimed he was barely scraping by. How they both looked at me with what I thought was sympathy when I mentioned picking up weekend shifts. It wasn't sympathy. It was pity mixed with guilt. I thought about every time I'd asked Dad for help. When my appendix burst and the hospital bills buried me. When my landlord raised rent and I had to choose between groceries and electricity. Each time he'd given me the same speech about building character through struggle, about how he'd started with nothing. Except he hadn't given my siblings that same character-building opportunity. There's more, Mr. Patterson said, sliding another folder across his mahogany desk. Inside were property deeds. Dad had bought my brother a condo in the city, paid off my sister's mortgage. Both properties were in their names, free and clear. I lived in a studio apartment with a radiator that only worked on Tuesdays. Why? I finally asked. Why them and not me? Mr. Patterson looked genuinely uncomfortable now. Your father left a letter. He specified it should only be opened by you after you'd reviewed the financials. He handed me a cream-colored envelope. Dad's handwriting on the front, for Rowan. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was dated 2 weeks before his heart attack. The first line made my stomach drop. By now you know the truth, and you're angry. Good. You were always the strong one, and I needed you to stay that way. I read on, my vision blurring. He'd chosen to invest in my siblings because they were weak, because they'd never survive without help. I was capable, resilient, self-sufficient, so he'd let me struggle to keep me sharp. I know you'll understand, he'd written. You always do. The letter ended with instructions. As executor, I had full discretion over the remaining assets, about $340,000 in liquid accounts. He trusted me to do what's right for the family. I looked up at Mr. Patterson. When do my siblings find out about this meeting? They're scheduled to come in tomorrow. They're expecting their regular disbursements to continue from the estate. And if I decide differently, the will grants you complete authority as executor. What you decide is final. I stood carefully folding the letter. Outside the window, I could see my rusted Honda in the parking lot next to Mr. Patterson's Mercedes. 7 years. 7 years of choosing between heat and food. Of declining social invitations because I couldn't afford a single drink. Of watching my siblings live comfortably while I drowned. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. Hey, can you cover my half of the funeral costs? Things are super tight right now. I stared at those words until they stopped making sense. Then I saw the other message from my sister. Dad would have wanted us to scatter his ashes in Bali. I'm booking tickets for all of us. Can you Venmo me for yours? Mr. Patterson was watching me carefully. What would you like me to tell them tomorrow? I thought about Dad's letter, about being the strong one, about doing what's right for the family. Tell them, I said slowly, that we need to have a conversation about what family really means. I walked out, leaving the letter on his desk. What I did next would change everything. I couldn't fit what happens next in this short video. Watch the rest down below.